Hi, my name's Paul Swiatek. I'm a practicing social worker here in Rochester, New York, and I have been since 1982, almost 40 years. I've also been here in quarantine in my home for 3 weeks, as many people have been, teens and parents. And I know it is a very stressful time for people, and it's a very unusual stressful time. We've never been through anything like this. So I felt it was time that maybe I shared some ideas for you if you find them helpful. And these ideas would help you try to find emotional balance or peace in your life. And if you are working on that and trying to find peace right now at this time, I believe that we are going to have to move into the emotional realm and manage emotions on some level, one way or the other. So the purpose of this video, if you are trying to do that, is to help you find emotional balance and help in that process as you go through this stressful time. If we are going to deal with the emotional realm, and we're challenged with that, we have to have a way to identify emotions first. And that can be harder than it seems. It seems like there's so many emotions. And I always felt that way. I was always confused about that. In the mid 1980s or early 1990s, when I worked for Park Ridge Hospital, we had Dr. David Berenson visit us for a couple days. He was a medical doctor and a family therapist, and he talked about boiling emotions down into 5 major groups or 5 major categories. And when he gave that talk, I felt like I finally had some direction. So this video, I do want to share that map with you, or the ideas behind that, and I hope that's helpful. So in this talk, I am going to use this homemade scale and use this as a way to think about things. Thinking about things or contemplating things is important because our thoughts kick off into our behaviors and they kick off into our emotions. So I want you to think about 4 things to start with when it comes to balancing things. This scale could be looked at as a way to balance things from the past with things that go into the future. And the center point is very important, which is the present. The present moment is sometimes skipped over because our mind keeps going over here to the past, or we're going to move off into the future. And we miss the present moment because we're off in one of these 2 places. In particular, in this situation, for all of us, it seems as if the future creates a lot of anxiety, and rightfully so. There are things to be afraid of. But that's in the future. If we can move to the present, we can create a balance. If we're always thinking about things in the past, things that could have been or should have been, then maybe that takes us down into a depression. Now, things from the past can be happy and they can make us feel joyful, and things in the future we can look forward to as well. So there's that balance between the positive and negative natures of the past and the future. But the present moment is something that's very important, and we cannot miss the moment because we're always moving back and forth between these 2 things. The second piece of balance in this scale that I like to think about is the issue between what we feel and what we think. So you could say maybe here might be a robot who has no feelings, and here might be an animal who has all feelings but no thoughts whatsoever. And there's a balance between that. Sometimes you need to have your thoughts be in the forefront, and that's important. So for example, if I'm in a car accident, I don't want my EMT coming to me in the car and freaking out, telling me, "Oh my God, you've been in a terrible accident. This is gross." It's like, no, I need for that person to be more logical and more rational, and that part needs to come to the forefront. Meanwhile, I suppose if you go to your counselor, you're talking to a therapist, and they're treating you like a drill sergeant or a electrical engineer, and it's kind of saying, "Well, just get over it. Stop thinking about it." If that's all there was to it, well, I think you'd be frustrated talking with that person because you're talking about something emotional and they're talking with you on something rational. So you're kind of missing each other. So there's a balance between our thoughts and our feelings, and that's important. A third part of this scale that I think about is too much stress, where we're too stressed out, and what I would call inertia, where you're just sitting in bed all day doing nothing. And at this period of time, I know a lot of teens got to watch out for that one, because is what teens I've been talking to are feeling like they've been doing nothing. And after 3 weeks, it's maybe at first it was okay, but now you almost feel like I want to get busy. I got to be too active. For some teens who were too busy and too active when school was going on, they were too stressed out, and actually to kind of get a balance. Now some teens are saying, oh God, I finally caught a break. And that's true for adults as well, in terms of too much stress and then too much sitting around. There's a balance between those two things about how much we move and how much activity happens and how much we rest. We have to find that balance. It's important. And sometimes that balance can get out of whack. There's one last thought, which is the fourth balancing point, which is between emotions that are stuffed and emotions that are expressed. Stuffing emotions in general is not really healthy. And in the short run, maybe it can be, but overall, if our emotions keep building up, that can lead to unhealthy situations for us internally and externally as well. So emotions have to have a flow in order for that to be balanced. There needs to be some emotional flow and some emotional expression. If your expression harms yourself or harms somebody else, you can say that's not healthy and that's not good. If you're angry and you're throwing things at people, that's not healthy. If you are angry and you're taking it out on yourself and you're cutting or you're using drugs, that's not healthy either. So we want to find an emotional balance between the emotions within and finding healthy ways for those emotions to express themselves, so that we can find that balance and that inner peace. Okay, so let's start our exploration of the 5 major emotions that David Berenson talked about, that I've been using as a tool for the last 25 or 30 years. Anger is the first emotion up for many people in many situations, and this situation is no exception. If, let's say, you have 2 units of anger, there's one thing I know for certain, is that you have the same amount of feeling or the same amount of energy that you value about the thing that you're angry about. You always have anger towards something you value. If you don't value it, you don't care. So if you were looking forward to going to the junior prom, really looking forward to that, and have 5 units of anger, you're mad that you couldn't go, you valued it a lot. You valued it a 5. If you really weren't that interested and they canceled the junior prom, you don't care. So, seniors going through this experience have a lot of things. This is your final stretch into the last part of your year, and a lot of seniors are angry, and rightfully so. The things that you feel angry about are what you valued and what you felt was most important for you. So it would make sense that you would be feeling anger at a time like this when you valued it. If you didn't value your senior year and you just can't wait to get out of the school, you won't feel angry about it. So there's always that corresponding feeling corresponds with the values behind it. And you have to find healthy ways to express your anger. You can't harm yourself and you can't harm somebody else. You can't take it out on your younger brothers and sisters or your parents, and you can't take it out on yourself either. But it has to have a healthy flow so that it's moving and you can find some balance, and the balance creates the peace. So the second emotion that we want to talk about a little bit is pain or disappointment or loss. And if you feel 2 units of pain and loss, you will feel the corresponding value, something you valued was that important to you. So for many students, they had clubs going, many people had sports going, you had a lot of interaction with your friends at school, and now that that's not there for you, you feel the pain and the loss of that, and that's an emotional adjustment to that needs to have some form of expression. Stuffing it is not healthy, and sometimes you can get caught in a depression, or you can get caught in a self-pity, which can kind of just keep you feeling like you're in the swamp or those emotions are frozen. So we want to have a flow of those emotions so that they're moving and you can find some expression. The third emotion is fear. And fear usually is about the future. And I know for seniors, what about my graduation? Will we have a ceremony? What about senior ball? What about this last time of the year? What's going to happen? And a lot of those emotions are fearful emotions. And they can really tip us this way if we have a lot. So you can say, well, I got a lot of fear. And that emotion needs expression. And I think also to help you balance off, we need to have our thinking engaged, not just emotions and feelings. So if, let's say, you have thoughts that tell you, oh, my life is ruined, this has ruined my life, those thoughts will create a lot of fear. And maybe those thoughts aren't rooted in reality. So you have to be careful that your thoughts aren't too far to the future, or too strong where maybe it's going to bring up fearful emotions. We can have rational fears, but we can also have irrational fears too. So keep that in mind when it comes to managing fear as an emotion. Now, emotion number 4 is kind of a strange one, and some people don't think it exists, but I do. I talk about it and try to manage it in my own life a lot, which is powerlessness, being powerless. I've even talked about it with 7th graders, and they know exactly what I'm talking about. In this situation that we're going through with the virus, there's a lot of powerlessness that we feel, adults and kids as well. And there needs to be a balance between maybe feeling like we have some power in our life to help push us to the other side, and we might even need a little more the more you think about it. So powerlessness is something you can't control, like the weather. If it's raining or if it's snowing outside, you can't do anything about that other than accept it. If you don't accept it, then you're going to be caught between trying to change something that you can't change, or being in a constant state of dissatisfaction because something's not going your way. There gets a point that when you face the reality that it's raining out and you wanted it to be sunny because you wanted to go on a picnic, it's raining, and you have to accept that. And I know that's not easy. There are many things about the situation that I have a hard time accepting, and I need to do more work on that. But if I try to change something that I can't change, then I find my emotional balance is off, and I find there's a disturbance and it doesn't feel balanced. If I can accept something, even if it's something that I really don't want, and that is so hard, and this might be the first time you've really had to deal with that in your life, where you really want something and you can't, and they canceled the tournament, they canceled the sports season. I know that's very difficult, but that powerlessness and acceptance is the balance. Acceptance is not easy. I'm not saying it is, but I am saying that that's where we want to move towards and try to move towards as best we can when we're dealing with things like this. This is a big one for sure. The last emotion that I deal with people is shame. Shame is kind of a sense of something's wrong with me, or I don't feel good about myself. And whenever somebody needs to do some work around self-esteem, the work is to move and balance shame. Shame is going to be there. We always have that sense, some people more than others. I know I've had a battle with my own shame, and tilt it towards feeling okay about myself. So I know I'm not perfect, and I know I probably never will be, and I'm okay with that. The shame voice would say, oh, you're not perfect, that's bad, or something's wrong with you, or there's that negative voice inside of our heads. And that is an emotion, that feeling of feeling ashamed of oneself for some reason. So if you move past that into self-acceptance, just like powerlessness, then there is a balance to that feeling. You want to balance that feeling off. You don't necessarily have to get rid of it, but you need to balance it off with a centered sense of self. So those 5 emotions, anger, sadness, fear, shame, powerlessness, are ones that need to have a healthy flow. You don't want them stuck in the swamp or frozen. You want them to move. And think about them as colors that an artist would use to paint a picture. If I give an artist 5 colors, red, yellow, blue, black, and white, they can pretty much use and mix those colors any way they want and make a picture whatever they want with no limitations. And that's what it is with these emotions. I feel these 5 emotions are like the primary colors of how to manage our emotional life. So identifying them is important, and then expressing them in healthy ways and not letting them sit in the swamp as part of this process of emotional balance and finding emotional peace within ourselves. If somebody tells me a story, if you tell me a story about your experience and you include all those 5 emotions, that story will be very full and very rich. It'll be like a painting that has all the colors. If you only have one emotion and it's kind of stuck in the swamp, the painting kind of becomes one-dimensional. So the idea behind understanding what the emotions are enables you to express yourself in a way that doesn't harm yourself or other people. So think of these expressions as a way to paint, and literally painting can be a way to express yourself. Writing poetry, any art form that's expressive of the emotions can be a healthy way for things to flow. Talking to your friends about how you feel about something can be helping. Talking to your parents can be helpful. Talking to a counselor or a trusted adult can be a helpful way for you to express what's happening to you in these moments that are, for all of us, I'd say stressful and also very unusual. We all at the same time have to deal with it. So in some sense, everybody's stressed, and we got to be sensitive to that. Your parents and your brothers and sisters are also stressed, people you live with in your families. Exercise works, healthy ways. Even if you walk around the block talking to yourself, we know that works. Keeping a journal works, writing things down and then erasing them, or keeping a journal online and then erasing it if you want to. Anything to help you express these emotions and identify them. It takes practice, like anything else. The more you practice it, the better you get at it. That's true for teens and for adults. We know that drug use in the short run sometimes will take people's emotions away, but in the long run, in the last 30 years of working with people in recovery from addiction, I have never talked to anybody whose life has gotten better because of their drug use. Even if that's vaping nicotine, that's a drug that a lot of times teens are using now to quiet the emotions or get rid of their emotions. Drug use wears off, no matter what drug you're using. And when it wears off, the emotions that you were feeling are just sitting there waiting for you, and you usually feel them a little stronger. So then if you go back to your drug use, you create the cycle where the emotions are getting stronger, more is in the swamp, more is frozen, and you keep refreezing. It's not beneficial. I've never seen anybody get healthy by using drugs for their emotional needs in their life. So we have to find healthy ways and practice these ways on a regular basis, and hopefully this video will give you some ideas about how you are going to do that. What's your program going to be to find balance and emotions in your life? So to summarize the things we've talked about in this video, we've talked about balance in life and balancing things in the past with things in the future and trying to be more present in the middle. We've talked about balancing stress in our life and inertia, where we're just kind of sitting flat, and you want to balance rest with action more in the middle. We've talked about our thoughts and our feelings and balancing those two things out. And also we've talked about balancing off emotionals that get stuffed and emotional expressions that move, and finding a healthy balance between those two things. So the idea is to move to the middle in these areas, and the emotions in particular that we identified were anger and sadness, fear, shame, and powerlessness. And those are either going to take a frozen form or like a swamp, or they're going to flow like a stream or fluid that's moving. And we want to have that flow so that we can find the balance. Emotional balance results in emotional peace, even in situations where things aren't going exactly the way we want. We can be sad and peaceful at the same time. We can be angry, but also have a sense of centeredness at the same time. And at a time like this, when many people are stressed and many people are confused, it can be helpful to know this. That's why I felt I wanted to share these ideas with you. I have found them helpful for me personally, and I've also found them very helpful for all the clients I've worked with over the years using this method. So I do hope this has been beneficial for you. Thank you for watching. Feel free to reach me through email. Please share this with others if you felt this has been helpful for you. Thank you.